Hello everyone, welcome to Turkish Coffee Reader channel. My name is Marie and I'm the coffee reader. Ever wondered who you were in your past life? At least in one of your past lives. In this video, you get a chance to pick a cup and the coffee grounds reveal insights about your past life journey. I'm going to see what symbols uncover about your past life events and key lessons you experienced in your previous incarnation. Choose the cup that calls to you the most and let mystical symbols of coffee cup reveals your story. We are going to explore what was your early life like, who were you in love with, and how did love impact your soul's journey, and how did you contribute to the world. We're going to see when and where did you live, what was the cause of death, and how did your past life ended, and also what is the big lesson that you can learn from that life, and ultimately how does it affect your current life journey. Whether you believe in past lives or you're just curious, this reading will help you explore the emotional energy and soul mission you carry over into your present daily life. You have two choices, red chip or blue chip. Which cup you're drawn to? The cup with the red chip or the cup with the blue chip? Choose that cup and I will put timestamps in the description that you can click on and go straight to that. And of course, you can choose both cups if you wish. I give you a moment. Pick a cup. Hello again. As I said, we are going to see what the cups reveal about the story of your past life. Now, which cup is your choice? Cup 1 with red chip or cup 2 with blue chip? If this type of reading sounds interesting to you, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, share and comment. As you know, that would help a lot with the YouTube algorithm. All right, let's dive in. I'm going to start with the cup with the choice of red chip. Let's see what the coffee cup shows about your past life. Let's start with the meaning of each symbol. Then we can gather all and see the full story. And finally, we see what lessons you're carrying into this life. Let's look at the saucer. I see a roof, like the kind of Chinese roof. It shows tradition, rules, hierarchy, and an old structured society. This points to East Asia or a culture that is heavily influenced by it, a culture where family, duty, and reputation were everything. I see a snail. It means a slow progress, patience, and emotional protection. You moved carefully, you observed a lot, and you didn't rush life, as if you carried your challenges quietly with caution. Here I see two eyes. It symbolizes a strong awareness and perception. You could have been detail-oriented, listening and understanding people deeply. This dark chunk shows emotional weight. There was grief, regret, or long-time pressure that stayed with you for most of your past life. Also, I see there was a major disruption, maybe a scandal, betrayal, or sudden loss that spilled out publicly and changed your life dramatically. I see these dots splashing outside. This means gossip. People were talking about you. Your life was never fully private. I see a dome and like a mountainous land. A mountainous land. Perhaps you were living in a structured city near mountains, perhaps temples, forts, and your life was involved with a struggle, endurance, and navigating complex social structures. Now let's look at the cup. I see the symbol of Illuminati eye. This talks about hidden knowledge or secrets. You were trusted with information or insights that others didn't have. Perhaps you were involved with some secret society of that kind. I see two fish. Looks like the Pisces symbol. You were highly emotional, sensitive, and intuitive, often torn between two paths or choices. And like Pisces, you would feel things deeply, I see a clown or a dancer, a magician. Could be that you had a public role, you performed for others, you entertained or told stories. Sometimes you would show another persona different from what you were inside just to survive in society. I see a torch means bringing light and guidance. Could be talking about teaching, advising, or helping others understand things. I see a dark silhouette with dark heart. Perhaps you are carrying emotional pain. Your life was led more by feelings and emotions than logic. I see a girl on the cliff, head down, contemplating to jump. It means severe heartbreak, emotional despair. It's connected to love, loss, or betrayal. I see many hats. This means multiple roles, or perhaps you were shifting identities, taking new identities or roles or jobs. I see a rifle at the head of a silhouette. This is literal. It means violent death, execution, assassination, or war-related killing. I see white hearts at the end. It implies peace near the end, emotional clarity before death. So the general picture of your past life is that this was a life of intensity. It was emotional, it was public, it was secretive, and it was unstable. Not royalty, not a monk, not a simple farmer. You lived in between worlds, public and private, as a performer and observer, and you were trusted but never fully protected. Your childhood, perhaps you were born into a traditional family in a strict society. Your childhood was structured and possibly emotionally distant. Expectations were high, feelings were rarely openly discussed. What you learned from your childhood was to observe quietly, adapt to circumstances, and be patient. I think you were a man. The rifle, public exposure, multiple jobs and roles, violent death, these all strongly point to a male life in that type of society. You most likely lived in East Asia, China, or Central Asian, a trade city, a place with temples and markets, public performers and officials, public tensions, and mountains nearby. In terms of job and daily life, you wore many hats. It means that your job was likely a combination of public, such as a performer, entertainer, dancer, magician, or storyteller, and private, such as a messenger, advisor, informant, or someone handling sensitive information. You interacted with many people daily. You traveled and changed jobs and roles often, and you survived by adapting to life's situation. In terms of your love life looks like it was complicated and painful. You were experienced one deep, intense love and a heartbreak, loss, or betrayal. You felt deep emotional dependency or abandonment. You may have been married briefly or been deeply attached to someone you couldn't keep. Your emotions calmed later in life, not because life improved, but because you accepted reality. That's a sad commentary, isn't it? In terms of your family or children, I think your family relationship were strained. The emotional distance were strong. There was gossip or a scandal that affected your family ties. I didn't see children, so there was no clear sign of children. If you had any, you weren't closely involved. In terms of your status in the society, you were known but not powerful. People recognized you, talked about you, and sometimes used you. You belonged to society but was never fully protected and safe. As for which era this past life was, I think it could be late medieval or early Renaissance, roughly 1300 to 1600, because firearms, political intrigue, public performers, secret information, executions, and all that fit perfectly. Your type of death was sudden, violent, and intentional. Could have been by execution, assassination, a war-related killing. You died because of what you knew, or because who you were connected to, or perhaps because of the role you played. There was no sign of getting old or sick, so your death was not due to old age and illness. Wow, your past life was intense. A man living in East Asia around 1300 or 1500, a performer, secret keeper, emotionally heavy, dying violently. All that intensity didn't vanish. It followed you into this life. Perhaps you feel emotions deeply. You notice what others miss. You juggle many roles. And sometimes you struggle in life. Sometimes you struggle in love. This life is your chance to balance, heal, and finish the mission he started, guiding others, expressing yourself with creativity, building something lasting. His life mission wasn't a spiritual enlightenment. It was to observe and understand people, to carry, protect knowledge, to adapt and survive in complex society, to guide and influence others quietly, and to bring light through performance, teaching, or insight. In fact, you connected and bridged worlds, public and private, emotional and practical. What lesson in your current life you can learn from that life could be not to ignore your emotional health, not to sacrifice yourself just to survive. And know that adapting without protection leads to burnout. And also wearing mask like a clown, trying to be someone that you're not, will destroy yourself. So, in summary, this coffee cup shows a past life of a man living between 1300 to 1600, likely in East Asia or a trade city. He was emotional, perceptive, and adaptive, a performer on the outside, a secret holder on the inside. His love life was painful, family ties complicated, and he died violently. But before death, he found clarity. The lesson is to protect your emotions, balance your roles and persona, and don't lose yourself just to survive in the society. In this life, in your current life, you're continuing that mission. You notice what others miss. You feel deeply. You juggle many responsibilities, and sometimes you struggle in love. Now you get to balance, heal, and finish what he started. How? By guiding others, expressing yourself creatively, and building something lasting. Best of luck to you. Okay, you chose the cup with the blue chip. Let's see what the coffee cup shows about your past life. Same as the previous cup, I will start with the symbols and their meanings, and then I will build the full story and finally see what lessons you're bringing into your current life. Let's start from the saucer. I see daisies at the beginning, mean that you started life with innocence, purity, and simplicity. Daisies symbolize joy of life and a connection to nature, but also youth and a carefree spirit. I see leaf and white hat. A leaf represents growth, transformation, and renewal, often associated with change. And a white hat, on the other hand, indicates a sense of responsibility and a role of authority while trying to maintain a sense of purity or virtue. The white hat refers to the good guy. He was the one who tried to remain virtuous. I see numerous white hearts attached to each other. This represents relationships where you were interconnected, possibly interdependent. These hearts could indicate a life where connections with others were significant and deep. I see a faucet. I see birds flying. Faucet represents access to the flow of resources or life force. And the bird flying symbolizes freedom, movement, and change, shows that you had a tendency to seek freedom, perhaps escaping from difficult situation or seeking new opportunities. Let's look inside the cup now. I see a very busy cup, rim full of lines and dots. This shows a life that was full of activity with little rest. Busy cup suggests a constant change, and the lines and the dots around the rim indicates a person who often felt on the edge. This life was full of hustle and mental stimulation, but also perhaps a lack of peace. I see a baby sea. This is the first thing that jumps out. The sea is always a sign of adventure, travel, and the unknown. Your past life had lots of ups and downs, waves of challenges and excitement. Life wasn't always easy, but it was full of movement and discovery. You were likely someone who didn't like staying in one place. Your soul wanted to explore, whether that was through physical journey across water, through trade, or even through intellectual adventures. I see a rocket. This is a bold symbol. Rockets are all about ambition and breaking barriers. In your past life, you were driven by a desire to reach higher, to push limits, and to create something extraordinary. You were not content with staying small or ordinary. You had big ideas, or maybe you were even ahead of your time in technology or thought. I see a sail ship. It talks about long journeys and connecting different parts of the world. This shows you might have traveled far, met new people, or been involved in trade exploration. You were a connector, someone bridging and connecting gaps, linking ideas, goods, and merchandises, or even cultures across great distances. Adventure was theme in your past life, but it was also purposeful. Your travel weren't just for pleasure, they were for discovery and contribution. I see letter M and N, or could be M and M. These letters could represent someone with initials that stand out in your life, or perhaps your initials were either MN or MM. I see pineapple. This symbolizes hospitality, luxury, and abundance. This could indicate a life where wealth or material comfort played a role, or a life where gathering, feasts, or socializing were important. I see head of a wolf. This means instinct, loyalty, and leadership. This suggests you were a person who was strong-willed, protective, and possibly guarded. It could mean that you had survival instincts. You were someone who had to be sharp and aware of the dangers around them. I see money. The money symbol is about wealth and material success. You might have been someone who either accumulated wealth or was involved in activities where money played a crucial role. It might also suggest that financial matters were significant to you, or that you were motivated by financial goals. I see a big tree trunk and the bird sitting on one branch. This symbolizes growth, stability, and nourishment. The bird on the branch indicates a sense of freedom within the context of stability. It could mean that you were someone who had a firm foundation in life. You were grounded, but still yearned for freedom and independence. I see wishbones. This means that your hopes, desire, dreams came to manifest. You had a fulfilled life. Wow, here I see several coffins in a row. These symbols suggest loss, possibly loss of people in your life or people around you. A row of several coffins could indicate a group death due to war, disease, or perhaps natural disaster. I see an Olympian throwing a disc. This symbolizes a strength, courage, and achievement. Perhaps you were someone who was very ambitious and goal-oriented, likely in competition or striving for success. It could be that you were an athlete in the Olympics. I see a big red ant. This talks about community, hard work, and organization. You were likely someone who worked tirelessly and collaborated well with others. It could also suggest that you were part of a large-scale effort or organization. I see plane in the sky, several planes in the sky. This could suggest adventure, exploration, and freedom. Maybe you traveled a lot, or you were involved in technological advancement or military operations that involved aviation. I see army tanker ship. This indicates that you were involved in military service or possibly naval operation. Also a submarine here hints at conflicts. You could have been involved in a sea-based war, or your life was marked by a heavy presence of naval influence. I see a steam train, cityscape, factories. All these symbols tell about your life in the past during a time of industrialization, perhaps during the late 19th century or early 20th century. Steam trains talk about the period of travel and modernization, and factories and cityscapes suggest a highly urbanized environment. I see the fool. It suggests that you were a risk taker, ready to jump into the unknown. And you were a speaker too. You were someone who was either publicly speaking or involved in some form of community or politics, or someone who was in the public eye. I see those 30s, 50s convertible cars. The convertible from the 30s or 50s speak to a life filled with luxury, status, and sense of freedom. It also refers to the era during which you live. I see that you were holding power, showing off assets. You had power, you had influence and material wealth in your past life. You had a role where you needed to show off your assets or power, either in public sense or part of your own survival. I see a girl wearing a fancy hat, holding candle. This girl suggests youth, beauty, and light. She may have been a figure of guidance, someone with a sense of grace and responsibility, or she could have been a female figure related to you in your past life, possibly your lover. I see an army warrior. This shows a strength again, conflict again, and a role tied to defense, army, and protection. I see a genie coming out of a heart. That shows power to manifest dreams, desires, or wishes, and also suggests a need to release emotional blockage and let the heart guide the way. I see an island here. This indicates isolation or sense of being able to isolate and recharge, represent a place of personal power or self-reliance. I see a beehive. This symbol symbolizes organization, community, and collective effort. You were likely part of a larger social or economical movement. I see a violin or an instrument similar to that. The violin represents harmony, creativity, and beauty. It suggests you loved music, or perhaps you played an instrument like that. At the end, I see a white coffin. The white coffin symbolizes a peaceful ending, a calm transition into the next phase of life. It suggests a spiritual transition or a peaceful crossing from this life to the next. So, to get a general picture of your past life, this past life was one of adventure, ambition, and emotional depth. You lived through several highs and lows, constantly moving between freedom and responsibility, as well as luxury. Your life was full of growth, change, and transformation, but also full of secrets, loss, and turbulence. It was a life of daring, risks, ambition, and continuous search for stability. The presence of wealth, hard work, and a strong will indicates that you played a major role in society in your past life. Your life wasn't static. It was in constant motion, much like the ship on the wavy seas. You sought freedom, you had power, you had influence, but your journey wasn't without sacrifices. I can say about your childhood in the past, marked by a sense of innocence, but also need for growth and transformation. You may have been raised in a place of comfort and privilege, surrounded by family expectations that shaped your future. Your early life was structured but full of opportunities to develop into a person with leadership potential. Based on the symbols like military involvement or strong leadership, as well as the warrior symbols, a submarine, army, ship, tanker, and stuff like that, this seems you were most likely a male. You had a masculine life focused on action and achievement. In terms of job and daily life, perhaps you were a doer, a maker, someone with ambition and practical skills. Jobs in your past life could have included an explorer, a trader, a military officer, engineer, or industrialist. You were someone who built systems, organized people, contributed to the growth of the society. And your work was meaningful and it had a lasting impact, either in trade or defense or industrial development. You had a very busy, influential life. You were involved in public roles. You could have been a speaker, politician, or a community leader, or a head of military or industrial work. You worked tirelessly and for sure in leadership roles. As for love life, your love life was beautiful, harmonious, and fulfilling. You experienced a deep and lasting connection with a significant other. The girl wearing a fancy hat holding a candle could indicate a significant romantic figure in your life, possibly a woman who was both beautiful and a source of light and guidance. There was mutual love, respect, and support throughout your life. And this connection brought you great joy and stability. Whether you've been married or had a deep partnership, you were committed to your love life. As for children, it's hard to say if you had any of your own, but your involvement in group activities or community roles puts you in a position of responsibility towards others. Could not be necessarily children, because your status might have made you distant or absent from personal family life. You were likely known and possibly respected in the society. You had wealth, status. As for where you were living and your location, I think your past life was likely tied to the water and train routes, perhaps islands or coastal cities or port towns. You might have lived in a society that valued exploration and commerce, maybe a European port city during time of trade expansion, or even a city involved in early industrialization. You most likely lived in a highly industrialized city or a military-driven city. Your location could have been New York, London, or Berlin in Germany, or a place connected to a military power. Could be St. Petersburg in Russia, or even Tokyo in Japan. You were living in an urban center. I think you lived in the late 19th to early 20th century, around 1890 to 1930s or 50s. This was an era marked by industrialization, military conflict, and social change. A steam train, factories, and plane in the sky, they all point to a time of great technological progress. And also a period where the world was grappling with war, political tension, and the transition to modern era. Your death was peaceful and calm. The white coffin shows that you transitioned into the next phase of life in a natural and serene way. There was no conflict or sudden trauma. Instead, you had a fulfilling life and you were at peace with the journey you had lived. It was a gentle crossing, symbolizing a life well lived and a soul at rest. The white coffin and open door point to a new beginning or a spiritual passage. Means that you had a very calm, peaceful transition after a life that ended with peace. I think in your past life, your mission was to build and maintain stability, both personally and in the community. You were likely someone who took on responsibility and played a key role in ensuring things run smoothly. You might have been a leader, guiding others through practical challenges and helping people come together to a common purpose. Your mission wasn't about fame or high status, but about creating lasting change and making sure that those around you had what they needed and thrive. But you for sure achieved a status and you achieved fame. What lesson to learn from your past life? You can learn to embrace success without ego, maintain peace in your emotional world, stay grounded even in time of prosperity, value relationship, nurture and love, and trust the natural flow of life. Like the wolf, trust your intuition. You need to trust your instinct and allow yourself to act on them. Be patient like the snail. Slow and steady will progress. Allow yourself to embrace freedom and let go of limitation. Your life purpose now is to continue the emotional work you started then, to manifest new opportunities and help others in ways that create balance and peace for yourself and those around you. Don't let work and duty consume you entirely. Embrace the present and don't be afraid to take risks and try new things. Step into outside of what you know. So there you have it, 2 fascinating past life readings straight from the coffee cup. Past life reading is a reflection of energies and lessons that may still echo in your current life today. You may feel certain patterns, relationship, or even emotional triggers that tie back to who you were. The goal is to understand them, learn from them, and grow. So if this resonated with you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more insightful readings. And feel free to share your thoughts or experience in the comments. I'd love to hear how these past lives might connect to your present life. Also, write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. I'd love to hear where all of you are tuning in from. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.